I've been looking after Mount Stewart now for 14 years. And over those 14 years, climate change and sea level rise have been two major concerns for us.
At Mount Stewart, so there's this really significant and important state with a house, formal gardens, woodland, all sitting at this interaction between nature and man in the landscape development. We're obviously aware of a lot of vulnerabilities and risks to do with our connection with the Strangford Lough, which is one of the largest natural inlets in the British Isles.
We are starting to see increasing storm intensity, which are damaging the trees. Winds bring salt spray, which can burn up some of the more tender plants.
Mount Stewart will not look like this in 100 years' time. That's what the science tells us, and we're starting to have to think strategically about how to deal with those things. Planning around adaptive processes is not a solo sport, it's a team sport. You need people to work with.
So we have worked with organisations like the Department for Communities in Northern Ireland, like the Department for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs in Northern Ireland, and also the Department for Infrastructure, to build a picture of how we might approach adaptation for heritage and cultural sites like the ones that we look after in the National Trust.
And we've been working with them very closely to look at a number of different measures that we can do to help work together to look at what are the long-term solutions here.
Grey Abbey is an historic monument looked after and cared for by the Department for Communities. So it's important when we look at how we manage and conserve areas like this that climate change is an important factor and consideration moving forward. So things like driving rain and wind can have a detrimental impact on the fabric and condition of these buildings and the archaeology. So as part of the project with the National Trust, we had a 2-day workshop at Mount Stewart as part of this research project. So it's important to get everyone in the room to identify what the hazards and the problems are around climate change and how we can mitigate and adapt against these moving forward.
And that was really refreshing, to actually have the opportunity to speak to our colleagues in this field and to hear their thoughts. There's nothing worse than holding a particular issue in your head with no one to share it with.
We need to understand what's going on before we can then look at what needs to be done to adapt to sea level rise.
So we've done quite a lot of work to develop data, to get everybody together in the same room. We've done work with Atkins and the Cassandra project to try and model some of this, so we have that data moving forward for the future.
To that end, we're looking at some fairly simple undertakings. We're going to put in some weather stations, try and understand the local microclimate. We want to look at levels of salinity in the groundwater. We want to see how that's changing from year to year, so that we can actually create some future vision of what the impacts are likely to be.
So what we're really trying to do is look at what climate change risks are and how we can look at pathways for adaptation and mitigation to help places like this long into the future.
Climate change, climate adaptation, preparing for adaptation at these special places that we look after is really important, and it's important because it's directly linked to our core message, which is to conserve and to prioritise and to commit ourselves to these important places of heritage and culture. It's really just about what we do as an organisation. It's nature, it's beauty, it's history for everyone, forever.